Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of Cricket Mehfil. I'm your host, Behram Kazi, and today we will be previewing the all important Asia Cup, which is just a few days away. I have with me over here Dhananjaya Chak, aka DJ Chak, from the Edges and Sledges Cricket podcast. Dhananjaya, are you as excited as I am for arguably the biggest multi-nation tournament outside ICC events in cricket? And how are you doing in general?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Of course, we are less than a week away from the much awaited India Pakistan clash, but I believe that is the second game of the Asia Cup, not the
Yep.
first, which is a little bit amusing. But yeah, I'm very well, really pleased to be on your show and looking forward to chatting all things India, all things Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, and generally about the Asia Cup.
Absolutely, and it's an absolute privilege to have you over there. Thank you so much for making it to our show and indulging in this cross border collaboration of sorts. And DJ, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room right away. Cut to the chase. Shaheen Shah Afridi is out injured for Pakistan, who is their premier fast bowler. And then Jasprit Bumrah, who is India's premier fast bowler, is also out injured. And to top things off, Sri Lanka's Dushmantha Chameera is also out injured. So it seems like all of Asia's main teams are missing their frontline pacer, and it seems like a bit of a curse. So, what do you have to say about that? Which team do you think will suffer the least out of these three?
Honest answer, not because we're an Indian fan podcast. I think India will suffer the least because they've got a massive amount of bench strength, followed probably by Pakistan because you've got a lot of good backup quicks. Sri Lanka will probably suffer the most, I think, because Chameera is a big component of their pace attack. But yeah, I mean, you've seen the tweets and stuff already. The opening batsmen are dancing now that Shaheen, Bumrah, and Chameera are all ruled out, right? But yeah, I mean, big blows for the teams. But honestly, although it's a big tournament, right? And as you said, it's outside the ICC, probably the biggest tournament that we have with so many countries involved. This is a little bit of a dress rehearsal for the real big show that's going to take place in October, November this year, right? So maybe a little bit of mind games as well from Pakistan, hiding Shaheen Shah Afridi after he has a little bit of mental edge over the Indian batsman after that first over spell in the last T20 World Cup, which was less than a year ago, right? So I don't know. We'll have to see, but I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think the cricket on display is going to be fantastic anyway, and it gives you something more to look forward to. Whichever team loses has the excuse ready, right? Like Bumrah didn't play or Shaheen Shah Afridi didn't play. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this might be a blessing in disguise for Pakistan. I know they have been over reliant on Shaheen Shah Afridi, but you've also got the likes of Haris Rauf, and Naseem Shah is peaking in international cricket this year, regardless of format. So he's looking really good, seems primed for this opportunity, and we'll have to see whether or not he avails it. And then also you have Shah Nawaz Dahani, Wasim Jr. So there are some bowling stocks in that Pakistan squad. The only issue might be the lack of a left arm pacer, but we'll get to that. I want to talk India first with you. And you've got the experience of Bhuvaneshwar Kumar in that bowling attack. He is a new ball specialist. And then in the UAE, you might not need to play the third seamer given you have Hardik Pandya in that squad. So now we're looking at Arshdeep Singh and Avesh Khan. Now, Arshdeep, I've seen, is really, really economical judging by his IPL. And Avesh is this fiery tearaway quick who's quite young. So, which of those two guys do you reckon will partner Bhuvneshwar? Because if Arshdeep is good at the death, I think it makes more sense for him to partner Bhuvneshwar just to kind of even things out.
So honestly, amongst the names you mentioned, I think Pandya is the backup seamer. He'll bowl a little bit, but he won't play the second seamer. Bhuvi is fit, which is good news. I think Arshdeep is actually ahead of Avesh in the lineup, and the reason for that is twofold. One, he's a left arm quick, so he brings that slight variety into that attack, which is quite same. It's quite right arm heavy. And it has been for India for a few years since Zahir Khan, who's the big guy, retired, right? And Unatkat played a few games. There was also Natarajan that came around last year. But Arshdeep is the one that has really shown that he's got the quality at this level in the T20 games he's played at the international level so far. He's really impressed a lot of us, not only because of the IPL where he did well, but the step between the IPL and international cricket is a big one, and you've seen him dealing with pressure well. The other thing you mentioned about him bowling at the death, right? The big question for India is that with Harshal Patel injured and he's not playing this Asia Cup and is in slight doubt for the World Cup as well, who's going to bowl those kind of slower balls and dipping Yorkers at the end of the innings. And so I think Arshdeep has the advantage over Avesh there as well. Avesh, of course, is a very good bowler. He did very well in the IPL, but he has been going for runs of late. He may be down a little bit on confidence. So we'll have to see how many games they both play. I think they will both play during the tournament, and we've seen Rahul Dravid, who's actually out with COVID, in fact, who will be joining the team later once he recovers. Dravid and Rohit have believed in a rotation policy and giving people game time. And we've had like 40 to 50 players play for India in this year already. So I think they will both play. I don't know whether Arshdeep will play every game because they might want to like hold him back a little bit, spring a little bit of surprise on some of the teams during the World Cup, but particularly if Harshal isn't fit. So yeah, that is my view of things. I really like the look of Arshdeep. I think he's put on some pace and his temperament was always there ever since as a 17, 18-year-old. He was bowling to Andre Russell, who was in beast mode back then, right? Like I'm talking like 2018, 2019, where he was absolutely unstoppable. And I remember a game where Arshdeep came in and you're like, he's going to be total fodder for Russell. And he actually got him out edging. So it's shown his temperament from an early age. And yeah, he's really, really put up his hand and said, I am good enough to play at this level. So very impressed by Arshdeep.
So Arshdeep, as you've seen, viewers, has DJ's vote. Of course, being a left armer also helps. Those are a rare commodity. And moving on to just the rest of the bowling, I know India's spinners are stacked, so we don't even need to bother talking about Yuzi Chahal, Ravindra Jadeja, Ravichandran Ashwin. But did India potentially miss a trick by not selecting Mohammad Shami? Because he's a shoo-in in the other formats, but T20 might just not be his forte. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think when Bumrah comes back, right, like he'll take over the leader of the attack role. I think Shami is being kept for the longer formats probably to try and like prolong his career. I think he's definitely an automatic pick in the longest format, which is the test game. They might be looking to preserve him a little bit for the 2023 World Cup. And so you've seen like we've had a procession of quick bowlers who've come through. Prasidh Krishna is another one. Siraj is another one that's played recently. So I don't think we should be playing Shami. He hasn't got a massively impressive record in T20 cricket generally either. So I'm okay with that. I think we've got enough fast bowling depth on the Indian side to live without Mohammad Shami as the opening quick. Of course, Bhuvaneshwar and Bumrah are the two old hands who've been doing this for a long time. And it's good to see Bhuvi being fit. And it's important. He's the highest wicket taker for India this year in T20s. He's played the maximum number of games for us. And for Bhuvi to really deliver is it'll change the complexion when you take early wickets, which Bhuvi is capable of. That changes the complexion of the game. Often the game is won in the power play itself. And Bhuvi's been to Australia before. He's bowled in Australia before, and so he's got that experience. And this is the time I think for him to really deliver. So I don't think Team India will miss the experience in class of Shami because you've got others who've got that capability. It's actually really nice to talk about the bowling because on edges and sledges, often we talk about the top seven, we get frustrated and we're like, okay, I will have some bowlers, Jadeja, Ashwin, these guys will just bowl. But it's nice to go in deep on the bowling actually. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I think India has earned that over the last half decade or so. Their bowling stocks have really risen. And we've seen a wealth of talent when it comes to fast bowling, a bunch of new young faces. And of course, you talked about the experience of Bhuvaneshwar and how important he will be with that new ball. I want to shift the focus now, DJ, to, of course, Virat Kohli. Now, there's no argument about Virat's class. His record speaks for itself. But there is the small matter of him not having scored an international 100 for over 1,000 days in international cricket now. It's nearly 3 years. And this year in particular, his form hasn't been great either. He had quite a poor IPL and he hasn't really shown with the bat internationally either. And then we see some stuff in the media which kind of suggests that Kohli might be going through some mental struggles. Of course, he's had a nice long break now and he should be ready to face Pakistan. But given that India has such a wealth of talent when it comes to power hitters and batting, I want to ask you, is Virat Kohli an automatic selection in that Indian batting lineup for this Asia Cup?
I think given that he's playing in the Asia Cup, he's been selected in the squad. There's no way you can leave him out of the 11. And the truth is actually in a game, okay, let's look forward. Let's look forward to October, right? Like if you're at the MCG, India's playing Pakistan, you're really not going to have Virat Kohli at number three. It's not realistic, right? He's got a
Hmm.
fantastic record in Australia. He's got a fantastic record against Pakistan. I mean, in T20 cricket, I think he averages like 200 against Pakistan because he doesn't get out and he scores a lot of runs. And even in the shambles that was the 10-wicket defeat last year, who's the only guy who scored any runs? It was Virat Kohli, right? Like, so the honest truth is, we've got a lot of talent, we've got a lot of big hitters, but Kohli will bat number three. One, experience. Two, there's no doubt about his class. I mean, mental struggles, everyone goes through them. Someone like Ben Stokes has gone through a lot. There's a whole documentary coming out on him about his the lows he's had. You've had people take an extended break from cricket. You've had Meg Lanning, someone who's won everything and is in great form as well, has said, I've had enough. We've been in bubbles, it's been a lot of cricket. And I mean, to be clear, Kohli's played the most amount of cricket any cricketer has played around the globe. So if he's had a dip, he's had a purple patch for the last what decade. It wasn't even form; it was incredible form. He would score often on the podcast, our podcast. We would not even speak about Kohli because 2 centuries every series were just
Hmm.
guaranteed, right? So it's odd when you don't see that. There's all this 1,000 days without 100. That's all nonsense. That's just for people making up news bites because they need something to talk about, right? Of course, it affects him. He's the one who cares about it the most. And secondly, with the new way India is playing T20 cricket, which is go out, hit the ball hard, Rohit Sharma, Sky, Rishabh Pant, we've got other Samson type of players, Ishan Kishan. Some of them are not in the squad, but you get the idea. Basically, what you need is somebody to stabilize the innings and play that anchor role if required. That's the point. If he comes in the eighth over and India 80 for one, then he can explode. But if India 5 for 2 in the first over, which they were the last time they played Pakistan, that's the Virat Kohli territory where he guides the team through the power play, through the rest of the innings. So, particularly with this new brand of cricket that Rohit and Rahul Dravid have endorsed and brought in and has been very, very successful of late. In fact, I can't see a world in which Virat Kohli is not playing. Forget the Asia Cup; he's not playing the World Cup in October, November. After that, it's a different story. Does he play T20s after that? That is a different story, and I have a view on that, which is you probably don't need him, and you can let go of him, and you can blood other youngsters. But until 2023, if you had to drop Kohli, you should have done it after the last World Cup, or you should have done it early in the year. The fact that you're going on playing him in all of these games means that he is going to play. So, I mean, the debate is it's pointless. It's made up by news anchors and cricket experts who need something to talk about on their show, right? Anyone who's ever played cricket knows that the guy's got absolute class and he's had a run of bad luck. And Sachin's gone through bad form. I mean, every batter who's ever played the game goes through bad form and finds weird and wonderful ways to get out. And if you're in a good vein of form, you get dropped or you give a not out when you're plumb in front of the wicket and you carry on. But when you're in bad form, you get given when it's clipping like stump. And that's just cricket. And I'm backing Kohli to A, do really well at the Asia Cup and B, be man of the tournament again at the World T20.
Well, there's an early call for you folks. Let's see if DJ gets this one right. And of course, there's no doubting Virat Kohli's class. He's been an absolute champion over the years, and the standards that he has set are just so high. He set the bar so high that now that we see Babar Azam kind of following his footsteps, it's a nice feeling to finally have a batter who can challenge at the top ranks. And of course, we wish Virat Kohli well. Pakistan does have a history of bringing people back into form, so you never know. 28th August might just be the day for Virat Kohli, and we definitely take mental health seriously as well. So we wish him the best of luck on that front as well. So you mentioned a lot of names in there in that star-studded batting lineup of India, and you also talked about the brand of cricket that India want to play under Rohit Sharma's captaincy and how Virat Kohli could slot in there. You've got the likes of KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, Surya Kumar Yadav, Rishabh Pant, Hardik Pandya. The list probably goes on and on, but these are the five names that really stand out to me. I want to talk future leaders because we've seen India have a lot of captains across formats this year, and Rohit Sharma is 35. So he doesn't have a lot of gas left in the tank here on. So, who do you reckon could lead India in the future? And the two names that spring up to my mind are Hardik Pandya, who won the IPL with Gujarat, and Rishabh Pant, who seems to be being groomed into the role over the last couple of years.
Yeah, there's also KL Rahul, who's just captained India to a 3-0 victory in Zimbabwe, right? So, and also captained India earlier in the year. I mean, there have been a number of captains this year. You're right. Bumrah captained in a Test match as well, so he's another contender for that crown.
Mm-hmm.
Shikhar Dhawan. who's got an Insta story with all these boys basically celebrating the 3-0 win against Zimbabwe, like it's a boys' hostel, which I
Yeah.
found fascinating, really. Coming back to your question, I think Rahul is a bit older than the other two. Pant is 24, right? So Rahul is probably one generation away from these two. So I think Pandya and Rahul are probably contemporaries, as they coffee with current boys, right? So um, I think Pant will probably get the captaincy, but he won't be the next in line. I think between Rahul and Pandya, despite Pandya's success, I suspect Rahul is being groomed as the all format skipper after Rohit because a it's hard for an all-rounder to captain because I mean unless you're Ben Stokes who can pretty much do everything, right? B Pandya is seen generally as a bit of a loose cannon in the cricketing community, which is I mean probably an unfair assessment now that he's a bit more mature. He's got family. He's settled down a little bit. Now he's a fantastic player as well. Maybe you don't want to burden him with that captaincy to curb his natural instincts, but you saw with Gujarat he was brilliant. I mean, the confidence that someone like Pandya brings to captaincy is next level. If you think back to the IPL, the first ball he was captain was a review, and he took it. And it was actually against KL Rahul, who nicked the ball, and it was given not out on the field. And Pandya had the confidence on his first act as skipper on his first ball was to review the best batter in the opposition, and he got it. So it'll be a tough call, but I suspect it's going to fall in Rahul's favor. Where that leaves us is that Rahul's a little bit older. He's past 30. Rahul will probably play till he's 35, 36. And then he hands over the reins to Rishabh Pant when he's 29, 30, right? So that's how I see life evolving for Indian cricket. But it's a weird place, man. I never thought that Kohli would have given up captaincy or been taken out of captaincy in the first place, right? And then we have this musical chair situation where every day we have new openers, new wicket keepers, new captains, and it's just strange because you guys can see your team and you're like, Babar's our captain, right?
Mhm.
India has not had that for some time. I think
Yeah.
maybe as a Virat fan, you saw him orchestrating that coup at Lords, right? Like when he said 60 overs of hell. That was our captain.
Hmm.
Rohit is, of course, a very good and very successful captain. Let's not make any mistake. He's won a lot of T20 games and he's very successful Mumbai Indians captain, but that continuity hasn't been there, which is something I think we need to now build towards with the Asia Cup and then with the World T20. But he has a respect of the dressing room, and whoever succeeds him, I think India will be quite focused on the next few months to start off with.
Yeah, interesting take. Of course, India will have to look towards long term solutions. And if we want to talk about Virat Kohli's captaincy and how it isn't with him anymore, we'd probably need an entirely different show for that because that's a long conversation. Anyway, let's move on to Pakistan, DJ. And for starters, Pakistan has not had any game time this year. They've played the solitary T20 international versus Australia when Australia toured Pakistan. But then again, since the inception of T20 cricket, international T20 cricket in particular, Pakistan has always been a top draw team. They've made most semi-finals in the T20 World Cup and they've won the competition once as well. And they looked at their fiery best in the T20 World Cup last year in the UAE, the same venue where the Asia Cup will be played. So, what's your assessment of Pakistan coming into this tournament, given that they haven't played a lot this year?
Pakistan have always been a dangerous team. It's almost like the less you see of Pakistan, the better they seem to do. Maybe it has to do with them wanting to prove a point. The last T20 World Cup, I think Ramiz Raja came out and said, "Oh, you won't tour." I think it was to the Kiwis, and he said, "You won't tour Pakistan, and we'll show you in the T20 World Cup." So show them by winning the T20 World Cup. They're predictably unpredictable, right? That's the classic line about Pakistan. But I mean, I think they're underrated because people don't realize how much raw talent there is in Pakistan. Everyone plays cricket on the streets. You get these incredible hitters of the tennis ball, tape ball bowlers. You get the raw talent and the unconventional talent that Pakistan produces. Someone like Sohail Tanvir who would bowl off the wrong foot and which had gone on to have a really successful T20 career all over the world, right? Someone like was it Asif Ali that hit those huge
Mm-hmm.
sixes last year. I mean, we were like, who is this guy? We have no idea who he is, right? Like we don't watch the PSL, and I don't follow it because we tend to follow the IPL. There's a lot of Indian cricket. I mean, there's always Indian cricket, right? So, but you then see this, and you're like, oh my god, this guy hits a huge ball. got the absolute class of Babar. You've got the tearaway speed of Naseem Shah, who's I think he was 17 when he made his debut in Australia, just hitting the gloves really hard. Shaheen Shah Afridi is fantastic. Haris Rauf, he's a good player. Shadab is a terrific leg spinning all rounder. Imad Wasim, I think I don't know whether he's in the squad this time, but he
He's
was a
not.
fantastic player. But he's a great player as well. But
Mhm.
over time, you see these guys, right? And every time that you play a big tournament, somebody new from Pakistan comes and does something. And the question with Pakistan is always, can they just keep it together for that 3 or 4 week period, right? That is the question for Pakistan. And it's whether they can keep their emotions in check, whether they can manage to just let their talent speak for themselves. Now, I mean, they're a dangerous side. They'll beat anybody on their day. They won't beat any. They'll thrash anybody on the day. If that, I mean, I'm talking after 10 wicket victory, right? 152 for 0, which you guys no doubt watch highlights of every other day. But yeah, I mean, I think there's been a slight shift in the power dynamic. To be totally honest, I can probably think of one moment in the past decade where Pakistan did really well against India, and it was Shahid Afridi hitting Ashwin for those two sixes. But there was a period of one decade where India just dominated every game. Then came the Champions Trophy, which was, I mean, you could write it off as a bit of a freak occurrence with Amir's spell, which was just insane, like 15 for 3. But then came the Shah and Shah Afridi over to show that it was not a fluke and there's something that they've figured out here. But in the midst of that, you had the 2019 World Cup. So there's a bit more context. Hopefully, the Indian channels are making more balanced ads now.
Yeah.
One hopes, because I mean, frankly, that was getting a bit embarrassing, the whole Mocha thing. But yeah, I mean, I think politics aside, I think these two sides are pretty evenly matched now. But Pakistan are more mercurial. Like
Mhm.
they could be really good on their day or they could be really bad on their day. And T20 lends itself to that better.
Mhm.
In a 50 over game, I'd probably back India to win 95 times out of 100 because in a longer game, the individual performances count for less. Brilliance will win you less. Individual brilliance. It has to be sustained over a longer period. Whereas in a T20 game, you need one guy to come in and whack 50 off 17 balls or 18 balls, and that's the game. It's done. Whereas you could have a game where you're chasing 325 and you need to sustain that over a longer time. So I think this is the format where Pakistan have the best chance against India, to be totally honest. But yeah, on its day, anything can happen. You can have a 152 for 0, or you can have a India winning by 10 wickets or whatever. It's completely impossible to predict. So I'm not even going to bother. Um, yeah.
Yeah, well, that is a strong claim. 95 out of 100 times. I'm sure some Pakistan fans will disagree with that. But you talked about Pakistan being mercurial and predictably unpredictable. It has been a tag that has been attached to Pakistan cricket since the dawn of times. But this team seems to be a bit different. They seem to bring in consistency a lot into their game. And that is largely due to the success of Pakistan's top three in T20 international cricket. You've got Babar Azam opening the innings with Mohammad Rizwan. Mohammad Rizwan was the leading run scorer in T20 international cricket last year, and he broke all records. Babar Azam is, of course, Babar Azam. And then you've got Fakhar Zaman coming in at one drop. Then Pakistan's middle order woes kind of come in because if the top three doesn't perform, that's when it's like uncharted territory for Pakistan. You do have the likes of Haider Ali, Iftikhar Ahmed, Khushdil Shah, and some other players in there, but they haven't quite solidified their place in that lineup. Of course, Heather is a breath of fresh air, and I think he should be given game time. You, of course, spoke about Asif Ali and his
What,
sixes.
is he in this squad or is he?
Yeah, Heather Ali is in the squad, and then you, of course, also mentioned about Asif Ali and his sixes,
Yeah,
so
he's
they
in the
have that
squad.
option as well. But
Yeah.
after that top three, you can't quite predict with Pakistan. They
Mm.
do have a decent bowling attack, but I think that is Pakistan's Achilles heel for a few years now. And another thing that I want to talk to you about is that this Asia Cup is in the UAE, and we know how often teams require 12 overs of spin. Now, you do have Shadab Khan's leg spin and you do have Mohammad Nawaz's left arm orthodox off spin, but then those last four overs, they might be bowled by part timers if need be. You've got Iftikhar Ahmed, you've got Khushdil Shah, but they aren't really premier spin bowlers. And I think that
Mm.
might hamper Pakistan's progress. What's your take on that?
So again, I don't think Pakistan's goal is to win the Asia Cup, and it shouldn't be either. It should be to win the World Cup, right? If the Asia Cup comes along the way, that's fine. I think they should actually be playing three seamers because you're not going to be playing three spinners in Australia, are you? So give your seamers the game time. Don't bowl your part timers. You're not going to bowl your part timers in Australia either. So it's about long term thinking, right? It's not well medium term thinking. It's only a few months away now. It's not about winning the Asia Cup. It's getting your combination and giving those players that time in the cauldron of an India-Pakistan game or a Afghanistan versus Pakistan game where the third seamer needs to come on and defend 10 runs of the last over. Whether they're successful or not is irrelevant because this is all a dress rehearsal for the big thing that's happening
True.
later in the year. So if I was in the Pakistan camp, I wouldn't be like stacking my team with spinners or like players who are very good at hitting the ball for six in a small ground. I'd be stacking my players thinking for the future. What do I need to win the tournament in November?
Yeah, that is fair. It's a very interesting take. Of course, I think I would agree with you over there. Pakistan are quite pace heavy, and they've got a few paces over there who are itching to get out in the park over there. And I mean, Shadab Khan is quality, and so is Mohammad Nawaz. So we'll see how they figure that one out.
And
And of
fans
course,
need to be patient as well, right? Like
mhm,
the problem with Indian fans and probably Pakistani fans as well is
definitely.
you want to win every match, right? You don't
Mhm.
have to win every match. Get your combinations right. So if you're experimenting, we need to be patient as fans as well. Okay, if you lose a game, it's not the end of the world. Do your experiment. And that is what fans mature along with teams. And hopefully we are mature. So if you lose on the 28th, it doesn't mean anything.
Absolutely. And even in the Asia Cup, India Pakistan will definitely play each other again because the third team in their group is the qualifying team. And you'd reckon that both India and Pakistan would beat that team quite comfortably. Of course,
Mm.
it could be any of Kuwait, UAE, Singapore, Hong Kong. When this video was being recorded, we didn't quite know who would make it. So either of those teams, they don't really stand a chance against Asia's top dogs. But then again, you look at Pakistan and you look at the lack of a left arm pacer, and there are still some questions of how they will cope without Shaheen Afridi because he has always been there and he is our main man. But then again, as I said earlier, Pakistan do have some impressive paces. So I guess time will tell.
Can I just ask you one question?
Yeah,
Amir, no one's bringing Mohammad Amir back. Is he coming out of retirement or
I don't think so. I do not believe that Ramiz Raja would facilitate that for one. He
really?
has his stance very firm when it comes to people with tainted pasts, and that's just my feeling. And you never know with Pakistan cricket, right? They always throw surprises at you.
But he did his time, right? He came back and played, and like he gave up. I think he had a fight with somebody, and he wanted to like give up his international career. But I mean, if you haven't got a left arm seamer, he seems like the absolute obvious choice. And I mean, with the precedent set by Shahid Afridi, bhai, I mean, you can retire and unretire pretty quickly, right? So.
Yes, I mean, but that is, of course, up to Mohammad Amir, and we don't know what goes on in those back channels and what sort of relationship building has happened or whether it has even happened or not. So I'm not quite sure over there. Amir does need to perform, though. He hasn't been stellar in T20 cricket outside of international cricket ever since he retired. So there's always that as well. But I wanted to talk about the Asia Cup at large. Of course, historically, India are the most successful team. They do have 7 titles. And a lot of people might be surprised that Pakistan has only managed to win the competition twice. It's actually Sri Lanka who are the second most successful team with 5 titles. And if you look at all the teams in the Asia Cup, you've got Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. Sri Lanka, of course, have the likes of Wanindu Hasaranga, who could win you a game single handedly. And they are coming off of some good form versus Australia when they hosted the Aussies at home. And then you've got Rashid Khan in Afghanistan, and Rashid Khan is probably, arguably, the greatest white ball leg spinner in the modern day. And then when you look at Bangladesh, okay, they might not have like a superstar in there, but then they made the last 2 finals of the Asia Cup. So you cannot write any of those teams off. And when it comes to the Super 4 stage, where you've probably got India, Pakistan, and 2 out of these 3 teams, I mean, anyone could really make that final, couldn't they?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the way the format would go is that India and Pakistan would most likely be in opposing semi-finals, and then you'd back them to beat the other teams. But as you say, on the day, anyone can spring a surprise, right? Sri Lanka, as you said, has won it 5 times. Probably in the glory days of Sri Lanka cricket, we're
Of
under
course.
probably Arjuna Ranatunga, Mahela, and Sangha, right? But yeah, Afghanistan has got it in it to do a surprise job. Shakib Al Hassan is playing for Bangladesh, so I'd say that's their big superstar. Interesting, Mushfiqur is being asked to open the batting for Bangladesh so that he can't celebrate prematurely like he did in the T20 World Cup in 2016. But yeah, I mean, Sri Lanka are a good side as well. Hasaranga has been denied a 100 contract to keep him fresh for the Asia Cup. He's a superb player. You've got Shanaka, all of these guys. I mean, it's going to be a good tournament, but I think all eyes will be on the big boys, which are unfortunately now only two instead of like there used to be three, probably with Sri Lanka included. But it is going to be a showdown between India and Pakistan, unless Sri Lanka can pull off an absolute stunner, and I suspect it'll be one of the that you'll see a surprise or two. But I suspect it will still be an India-Pakistan final, and I guess that's how it's been designed, right? To make sure that India and Pakistan play each other at least twice and maybe even three times. So yeah, more fun for us fans.
Absolutely. I mean, it definitely seems like they've designed the tournament that way, and it'll be good and lucrative for everyone if that happens. Of course, we'd love to see India and Pakistan play each other thrice and play in an Asia Cup final, which has never happened actually. They've never played each other in an Asia Cup final, which is quite mind blowing if you ask me. But yeah, we've got an early prediction over here from DJ in India Pakistan final. I'm going to throw my weight behind that as well and say that will happen. And then may the best team win. That's a wrap for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, DJ, for taking out the time. It was an absolute honor to have you on our show, and I, for one, enjoyed talking cricket with you a lot.
Yeah, great to be on. Thanks, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, likewise, of course, everyone go and follow Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, follow us as well. Like our content, share it, subscribe to our channel. We at Grassroots Cricket are trying to change the landscape of cricket coverage in Pakistan. We're trying to move away from sensationalism and we're trying to bring the focus back to the cricket. So do follow our content across social media platforms. And yes, support us. Let us know in the comments what you think about us and what we should do better. That's a wrap for now. Thank you and bye bye.
Shot और कैच आउट हो गए